Everyone thinks Filipino choirs win because they are born with natural talent. But that is a lie. The real secret isn't in the DNA. It's a grueling, high-stakes rehearsal culture known as bayanihan. While the world assumes Filipinos simply have golden pipes, the truth is far more fascinating and far more brutal. We're exposing the disciplined weapon local conductors used to achieve a level of vocal precision that leaves global judges speechless. This isn't about genetics. This is about sacrifice, obsession, and a communal intensity that turns ordinary singers into world-beating machines. Welcome to the real story of Filipino choral supremacy. March 2025. The Grand Prix of Nations World Choir Championship in Vienna. The Philippine madrigal singers take the stage, and within 30 seconds, European judges are visibly shocked. The precision, the power, the impossible unity of 40 voices moving as one organism. They win again. It's the 7th consecutive year a Filipino choir has dominated the World Championship. Online, the comments are predictable. Filipinos are just naturally talented singers. They're born with it. Must be in their DNA. But here's the truth nobody talks about. If you walked into one of these choirs 6 months before competition, you wouldn't see natural talent. You'd see something that looks more like military training. You'd see tears. You'd see exhaustion. You'd see a level of discipline that would break most Western choirs within a week. Natural talent? That's the comfortable lie the world tells itself to avoid confronting what Filipino choirs actually do. Yes, Filipinos love karaoke. Yes, singing is part of Filipino culture. Family gatherings, video bars, street performances. But there's an ocean of difference between casual singing and elite choral competition. The Philippine Madrigal Singers, the University of Santo Tomas Singers, the 8 Neo Chamber Singers. These aren't just groups of talented people who showed up and sang. They're precision instruments, engineered through a process so intense that many members describe it as the hardest thing they've ever done, harder than medical school, harder than military service. The shift from Filipinos like to sing to Filipino choirs dominate the world didn't happen because of DNA. It happened because Filipino choral culture developed a training methodology so effective, so brutal, and so communal that it turned singing into a competitive weapon. This is structural engineering of human voices. This is cultural grit weaponized into art. Here's what a typical elite Filipino choir rehearsal schedule looks like 6 months before international competition. Monday through Saturday, 6 o'clock p.m. to 10 o'clock p.m. 4 hours. Every single day. Plus Sunday afternoon sessions. Plus overnight lock-ins, where the entire choir sleeps in the school gymnasium or church hall, waking at 5 o'clock a.m. to rehearse before breakfast. Singers sacrifice jobs, relationships, family time. One former member of the University of the Philippines Madrigal Singers described it. I missed my sister's wedding. I turned down a job promotion. My girlfriend left me. But we won the European Grand Prix, and when I heard us sing in that cathedral in Budapest, I understood why. This isn't hobby-level commitment. This is Olympic athlete-level sacrifice. While European and American choirs rehearse twice weekly for 2 hours, Filipino choirs are putting in 28 hours weekly for months, without payment, driven by something deeper than money. The Filipino cultural concept of pakikasama, roughly translated as getting along or going along with the group, becomes the psychological foundation of choral dominance. In Western individualistic cultures, 40 singers means 40 egos that must be managed. In Filipino choir culture, pakikasama creates something different. Voluntary ego death in service of collective perfection. When a conductor says, "We're rehearsing until this phrase is perfect," nobody leaves. Nobody complains. Nobody checks their watch. The group stays until it's right, even if that means midnight, even if that means missing dinner, even if personal plans are destroyed. This creates a hive mind effect that foreign observers find almost supernatural. 40 voices breathing together. 40 vowels shaped identically. 40 bodies swaying in unconscious synchronization. Pakikasama isn't just cultural politeness. It's the psychological weapon that makes precision possible. You can't buy this. You can't fake it. It's centuries of communal culture applied to vocal art. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most elite Filipino choirs have almost no funding. The Philippine Madrigal Singers, despite winning 7 world championships, operate on a shoestring budget that would make European choirs quit immediately. No paid professionals. No rehearsal stipends. No fancy studios with perfect acoustics. They rehearse in hot, humid rooms with terrible ventilation. They can't afford professional arrangers, so they arrange music themselves. They can't afford travel, so they crowdfund and beg sponsors. But this poverty breeds something powerful. Extreme discipline and resourcefulness become the only competitive advantages available. When you can't buy better equipment, better venues, or better coaches, you compensate with work ethics so intense it borders on obsessive. European choirs can rely on funding. Filipino choirs can only rely on themselves. So they become machines of precision through sheer necessity. Constraint breeds excellence. Poverty engineered dominance. In Western choirs, conductors are musical directors. In Filipino elite choirs, there's something closer to military generals crossed with spiritual leaders. Professor Andrea Veneration, founder of the Philippine Madrigal Singers, was legendary for making grown men cry during rehearsals. Not through cruelty, through relentless pursuit of perfection. She'd stop a piece 15 times for a single syllable that wasn't precisely articulated. She'd make the choir repeat a 4-second phrase for 90 minutes until every vowel matched exactly. Filipino conductors like Mark Anthony Carpio, Janet Sabasaracama, and Jonathan Velasco continue this tradition, acting as vocal coach, therapist, parent, and drill sergeant simultaneously. They don't just conduct. They engineer voices. They break down egos. They rebuild singers into components of a larger machine. Their rehearsals aren't practice. They're transformation rituals. The conductor isn't just leading. They're architecting a weapon designed to dominate international stages. Listen to a Filipino choir, and then listen to a German or British choir performing the same piece. You'll hear the difference immediately. European choral traditions often emphasize warmth, blend, subtlety, voices that melt together like butter. The Philippine sound is different, bright, aggressive, penetrating, with an edge of brilliance that cuts through concert halls like a blade. It's not softer, it's sharper. Filipino arrangers take Western classical pieces and inject them with rhythmic vitality drawn from indigenous music traditions. Sudden dynamic shifts, unexpected syncopations, percussive consonants that European judges find shocking and exhilarating. When the University of Santo Tomas singers performed a Renaissance motet at the 2024 Tolosa Choral Contest, judges described it as like hearing the piece for the first time despite knowing it for 30 years. The Philippine sound isn't imitation. It's reinvention. It's colonizers' music reclaimed and perfected. Here's a competitive advantage nobody talks about. Tagalog and Filipino regional languages condition the mouth, tongue, and soft palate in ways that accidentally optimize for choral singing. Tagalog vowels are pure, bright, and forward, exactly what choral music requires. The Filipino phonetic system doesn't have the lazy diphthongs of American English or the closed vowels of French. Every vowel is clean, open, precise. This gives Filipino singers a baseline vocal placement that European singers spend years trying to achieve through technique. Moreover, growing up multilingual in an archipelago of 180+ languages gives Filipinos an unconscious facility with accent mimicry. When Filipino choirs sing German lieder, Latin masses, or French chansons, they don't just approximate the pronunciation. They nail it with precision that shocks native speakers. Linguistic diversity became a secret vocal weapon. Language shaped the instrument. Culture built the foundation for dominance. Ask any international choral judge what makes Filipino choirs technically superior, and they'll mention the same thing: projection without tension. Filipino singers can generate massive volume that fills 2,000-seat concert halls without sounding strained, harsh, or forced. The secret? Masking. A vocal placement technique where sound resonates in the sinus cavities and skull rather than just the throat and mouth. This creates a ping in the voice, a bright ring that carries over orchestras and through massive spaces without requiring destructive vocal force. Western conservatories teach this technique, but Filipino singers seem to acquire it naturally through cultural singing practices. Church choirs, community singing, constant karaoke that conditions the voice from childhood. By the time they join elite choirs, this placement is already internalized. The technical foundation is built before formal training even begins. Childhood singing culture accidentally created world-class vocal instruments. January 2026. Choral conductors from Estonia, South Korea, Germany, and Venezuela arrive in Manila. Not to perform, but to study. The Philippines has become the global benchmarking destination for choral excellence. Workshops led by Filipino conductors sell out within hours. International choirs hire Filipino vocal coaches. Music conservatories in Europe now include Philippine choral techniques in their curricula. This represents a complete reversal of traditional colonial knowledge flows. For centuries, Filipinos studied European music. Now Europeans study Filipino methods. The University of Santo Tomas offers international masterclasses that draw participants from 40 countries. The Asian Choral Summit, held annually in Manila, has become the most prestigious choral education event in the world. Filipino dominance isn't just about winning competitions anymore. It's about defining the global standard. The student became the master. The colonized became the authority. Something unexpected happened in 2024 to 2025. Filipino choir rehearsal videos went viral. Clips of intense 4-hour sessions, conductors stopping performances dozens of times for microscopic adjustments, singers sweating through complex harmonies. These garnered millions of views on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Non-musicians watched in fascination. Filipinos watched with pride. Suddenly, choral music, traditionally seen as elitist or boring, became mainstream cultural content. Younger Filipinos started joining choirs. Corporate sponsors began funding groups. The government finally started paying attention. The digital evolution transformed perception. Choir singing went from nerdy classical music thing to badass display of Filipino excellence. When the Philippine Madrigal Singers won the 2025 Grand Prix, the celebration wasn't just in music circles, it was nationwide. Choirs became symbols of national capability, proof that Filipinos could dominate any field through discipline and collective effort. Rehearsal culture became source of pride, not secret. Here's what the world still doesn't understand. Filipino choral dominance isn't about producing vocal superstars. It's about perfecting collective labor. In American and European traditions, the dream is often solo stardom. The individual voice that stands out, the breakout performer who goes solo. Filipino choir culture moves in the opposite direction. The individual dissolves into the collective, and that dissolution creates power greater than any solo voice could achieve. The message is profound. When a community commits totally, when egos die in service of collective perfection, when bayanihan, communal unity, becomes the organizing principle, the result is world domination. Filipino choirs don't win because Filipinos are born talented. They win because Filipino culture engineered a system that turns regular people into precision instruments through brutal discipline, communal sacrifice, and structural excellence. The weapon isn't genetics. The weapon is us, together, refusing to accept anything less than perfection. That's the real secret. That's the Filipino sound. The next time you hear a Filipino choir and think, they're just naturally talented, remember, you're watching the result of thousands of hours of sacrifice, collective ego death, and cultural engineering that most countries can't or won't replicate. Natural talent is a myth. Disciplined community is the weapon. And Filipinos weaponized it better than anyone else in the world.